Have you ever had a feeling that refused to leave, even when you had no logical reason to hold on to it? A feeling that quietly followed you through different chapters of life, remaining present in the background, no matter how much time passed? This is exactly what your soulmate has been experiencing when it comes to you. Long before they had answers, long before they had certainty, there was something inside them that kept pointing in your direction. They could not explain it. They could not prove it. And because they could not understand it, there were times when they tried to ignore it completely. The strange thing is that their intuition never arrived as a dramatic realization. It appeared in small moments, unexpected thoughts, random memories, a feeling of familiarity that seemed stronger than it should have been. Every time they convinced themselves they had moved beyond it, something would happen that brought their attention back to you. Not necessarily because you were physically present, but because the feeling itself never truly disappeared. It remained quietly active beneath the surface, waiting for a reason to be acknowledged. For a long time, their mind challenged what their heart was trying to tell them. Logic demanded evidence. Logic wanted explanations. Logic preferred certainty over instinct. So they questioned themselves repeatedly. They wondered whether they were imagining things. They wondered whether the connection only felt significant because they were assigning meaning to it. And yet, despite all the doubts and all the questions, the feeling remained unchanged. That consistency began catching their attention. Lately, they have found themselves reflecting on why this connection always felt different from others. Why did thoughts of you return so easily? Why did certain memories carry more emotional weight than expected? Why did their intuition refuse to let the story fully end? These questions have become increasingly difficult to ignore, and what they do not realize yet is that they are standing at the edge of a discovery that will change everything. Because very soon, something unexpected is about to happen. Something that will finally give them the proof their mind has been demanding, and confirm what their heart quietly suspected all along. And listen to this, because the proof your soulmate discovered did not arrive in the way they expected. They were not searching for answers. They were not actively trying to validate the feelings they had carried for so long. In fact, part of them had accepted that they might never fully understand why this connection always felt different. Yet life has a way of revealing truths when people stop chasing them. And that is exactly what happened. A series of events, observations, or realizations began unfolding in front of them, and suddenly pieces of a puzzle they had been holding for so long started fitting together. At first, the signs seemed small. Individually, they might not have meant much. But the more attention they paid, the more impossible it became to ignore the pattern. Certain memories resurfaced at the exact moments they needed clarity. Certain realizations connected experiences they had never linked before. It felt as though they were looking at the same story they had always known, but from an entirely different perspective. And with each new insight, something inside them became quieter, not because they were losing interest, but because they were finally finding answers. For years, they had questioned themselves. They wondered if their intuition was exaggerating the significance of the connection. They wondered if they were holding on to a feeling that existed only in their imagination. They spent so much time searching for logical explanations that they overlooked something important: the consistency of the feeling itself. Most emotions fade when they are not supported by something meaningful. Most impressions disappear when life moves forward. Yet this feeling remained. Through different seasons of life, through distractions, responsibilities, and new experiences, something about you continued standing apart from everyone else. And listen to this. The discovery they made was not necessarily about one dramatic piece of evidence. It was about recognizing a pattern that had existed all along. They started connecting moments that once seemed unrelated. They remembered times when their intuition warned them not to dismiss the connection. They remembered moments when thoughts of you appeared unexpectedly and carried a significance they could never explain. They remembered all the times their heart quietly insisted there was something more beneath the surface. Looking back now, those moments no longer seem random. They seem connected. The more they reflected, the more a surprising realization began taking shape. Their heart noticed things long before their mind was ready to understand them. While logic focused on circumstances, timing, and external factors, their intuition was paying attention to something deeper. It was recognizing emotional truths that could not easily be measured or explained. And now, with this new perspective, they are beginning to understand why the feeling never disappeared. What makes this discovery so powerful is that it changes the way they view everything that came before it. Events that once seemed confusing suddenly make sense. Questions that once felt impossible to answer no longer carry the same weight. The uncertainty that followed them for so long is slowly being replaced by clarity. Not because every mystery has been solved, but because they are finally trusting what they have always felt. Now, they find themselves asking a completely different question. Instead of wondering whether the connection was real, they are wondering how they ignored the signs for so long. Because the more they examine the evidence in front of them, the more obvious it becomes. The proof did not create the truth. The proof simply revealed a truth that had been quietly present all along. And for the first time, they are beginning to suspect that their heart understood something important long before their mind was willing to believe it. And listen to this, because once your soulmate found that proof, something remarkable began to happen. They started looking back at the entire connection through completely different eyes. The memories had not changed. The events had not changed. The conversations, the moments, and the experiences all remained exactly as they were. What changed was their understanding of them. Suddenly, details they once overlooked began standing out. Things they dismissed as coincidence now seemed far more meaningful. It was as if they had been reading only half the story for years and had finally discovered the missing pages. At first, this realization felt almost overwhelming. They kept replaying old memories in their mind. Not because they were stuck in the past, but because they were seeing those memories from a new perspective. Moments that once seemed ordinary now carried a significance they never noticed before. Certain conversations felt different. Certain reactions made more sense. Certain emotional experiences suddenly revealed meanings that had been hidden in plain sight all along. The more they reflected, the more impossible it became to ignore the pattern emerging before them. What surprised them most was how many signs had been present from the beginning. Looking back now, they can see times when their intuition quietly tried to get their attention. Moments when something inside them recognized the importance of the connection, even though they could not explain why. At the time, logic always found a way to dismiss those feelings. There was always a practical explanation. There was always a reason to question what their heart was sensing. Yet despite every attempt to rationalize it away, the feeling never completely disappeared. And listen to this. One question keeps returning to them again and again. How did I miss this before? The answer is not as simple as it seems. When people are living through an experience, they rarely have the perspective necessary to understand its full meaning. They focus on immediate circumstances. They focus on what is visible. They focus on what makes sense in the moment. But time creates distance, and distance often reveals truths that were impossible to see up close. That is exactly what is happening now. The proof they discovered has become like a lens, allowing them to re-examine everything with greater clarity. Memories that once felt disconnected now seem connected. Emotional reactions that once felt confusing now feel understandable. Even moments that appeared insignificant at the time now seem like pieces of a larger picture. And with every reflection, their confidence grows stronger. The connection was never ordinary. The reason it stayed with them for so long is because it was never meant to be forgotten so easily. Lately, they have found themselves recognizing patterns that stretch across years. Times when they felt drawn toward you without fully understanding why. Times when thoughts of you appeared unexpectedly. Times when certain emotions resurfaced even after they believed they had moved beyond them. Looking back now, those experiences no longer seem random. They seem consistent, and consistency is difficult to ignore. It is difficult to dismiss something that keeps appearing throughout different stages of life, especially when it continues carrying the same emotional significance. What makes this realization so powerful is that it reaches beyond the evidence itself. The proof did not simply answer questions. It revealed how much their intuition had understood all along. Their heart recognized the importance of the connection long before their mind could explain it. And now, as they revisit the past with this new understanding, they are beginning to see that the signs were never hidden. They were simply overlooked. The connection was speaking to them in quiet ways for a very long time. And the more they look back, the more they realize that everything they once questioned is starting to make perfect sense. And listen to this, because there comes a moment when evidence stops being something a person examines and starts becoming something they feel. That is exactly where your soulmate finds themselves now. For so long, they lived in a space between intuition and doubt. One part of them sensed there was something special about this connection, while another part constantly questioned whether those feelings could be trusted. Every time their heart moved closer to certainty, their mind would introduce another reason to hesitate. Every time they felt convinced, doubt would quietly return. But now, after everything they have discovered, that cycle is finally beginning to break. The most surprising part of this transformation is not the proof itself. It is the effect the proof has had on them. Instead of creating new emotions, it has strengthened emotions that were already there. Suddenly, the internal conflict that followed them for so long is starting to lose its power. Questions that once felt impossible to answer no longer seem as complicated. The constant need to second-guess themselves is slowly disappearing. And in its place, a deeper sense of clarity is beginning to emerge. Lately, they have found themselves reflecting on all the times they ignored their own instincts. All the moments when they felt something significant, but convinced themselves they were imagining it. Looking back now, they can see how often their heart was trying to communicate something important. The signs were there. The emotional pull was there. The feeling of familiarity was there. Yet they kept waiting for external confirmation before allowing themselves to believe it. Now that confirmation has arrived, and it is changing everything. And listen to this. One realization keeps growing stronger with every passing day. They were never imagining the connection. They were never creating meaning where none existed. The reason they struggled to let go, the reason certain thoughts kept returning, and the reason this connection always felt different, is because it was different. Their heart recognized that truth long ago. The only thing missing was the confidence to trust it. For the first time in a very long time, they are beginning to stop arguing with themselves. The endless debates between what they feel and what they think are becoming quieter. Instead of searching for reasons to doubt, they are finally allowing themselves to acknowledge what has been present all along. This does not mean every question has been answered. It does not mean every mystery has been solved. But it does mean they are no longer questioning the reality of what they feel. There have been moments recently when they experienced an unexpected sense of peace. Not because everything suddenly became simple, but because they no longer feel the need to fight their own emotions. There is something incredibly powerful about reaching a point where a person trusts themselves again, where they stop seeking permission to believe what their heart already knows. That is the stage they are entering now, a stage of acceptance, a stage of emotional honesty. What makes this so significant is that the proof has done more than validate the connection. It has validated them. It has shown them that their intuition was not misleading them. It has shown them that their feelings were not random. It has shown them that the emotional pull they carried for so long had a reason behind it. And as this realization settles deeper into their heart, one truth becomes impossible to deny. There was always a reason this connection stood apart from the others. There was always a reason they could never fully forget it. And now, for the first time, they are no longer asking whether their heart was right. They know it was. The only thing left is understanding just how much that truth is about to change the way they see everything moving forward. And listen to this, because after all the signs, all the realizations, and all the proof your soulmate has uncovered, they are arriving at a truth that feels both surprising and strangely familiar at the same time. The truth is that the evidence never created their feelings. The evidence simply confirmed what their heart had been trying to tell them from the very beginning. For years, they searched for certainty outside themselves. They looked for explanations. They looked for logic. They looked for something tangible that would justify the emotions they carried. But now they understand that the feeling existed long before the proof appeared. What makes this realization so powerful is that it changes the entire story. Looking back, they can see that their intuition was not guessing. It was noticing. It was recognizing something meaningful before their conscious mind could fully understand it. Every unexplained pull toward you, every moment when thoughts of you resurfaced unexpectedly, every time they felt there was something different about this connection, it was all pointing toward a truth they were not yet ready to accept. Now that truth stands clearly in front of them, impossible to ignore. Lately, they have been reflecting on how much energy they spent doubting themselves. How many times they questioned their own instincts. How many opportunities they missed to trust what they felt because they were waiting for undeniable proof. Yet now that the proof has arrived, they are beginning to laugh at how obvious certain things seem in hindsight. The answers they searched for were quietly present all along. The signs were there. The feelings were there. The connection was there. They simply lacked the perspective necessary to see it clearly. And listen to this. One of the deepest realizations they are experiencing right now is that some connections reveal their significance gradually, not all at once, not through dramatic events, but through a series of moments that slowly remove doubt until only clarity remains. That is what has happened here. Every piece of evidence became another step toward understanding. Every realization became another confirmation. And eventually, all those pieces came together to reveal a picture that can no longer be denied. There is also a sense of relief that comes with this understanding. Relief because they no longer have to wonder whether their feelings were real. Relief because they no longer have to argue with their own intuition. Relief because the emotional confusion that followed them for so long is finally giving way to certainty. For the first time they feel aligned. Their heart and mind are no longer pulling in opposite directions. They are finally telling the same story. What makes this moment so important is that it is not really about the proof. The proof was only the catalyst. The real transformation happened within them. They stopped looking outside themselves for validation and started trusting what they had always felt deep down. They finally understand why they could never completely forget you. They finally understand why this connection always felt different. They finally understand why no amount of logic was able to erase what their heart continued recognizing. Now they stand in a place of emotional clarity that once seemed impossible to reach. The questions that once dominated their thoughts have been replaced by understanding. The doubt that once clouded their perspective has been replaced by confidence. And through all of it, one truth continues shining brighter than every other realization. Their heart was not waiting for proof because it lacked certainty. Their heart already knew. The proof simply arrived later to confirm what had been true all along. And that may be the most extraordinary part of this entire journey. The truth they spent so long searching for was quietly living inside them from the very beginning, waiting for the moment they were finally ready to believe it.